Welcome. This is your host, Joe Peters. Welcome to Momfit with Joe Peters. And also, welcome to the amazing Spanglish World Network and Her Network on Single TV channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download the Single TV app in the respective app stores in iOS and Android devices. While you are downloading, give us a comment and rate the app. The app is free. Single TV is also available in Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Roku Stick in all the smart TVs. I am super excited to have you here helping us to make a reality around the world with our mission of helping moms to win the marathon of motherhood without burnout. And as a reminder, if you are not following me yet, like is my name here in the screen, go to Facebook and Instagram, Joe Unicorn Coach. I handle my social media personally. So if you have a challenge, if you have a question, if you are going to a rough time, please don't hesitate on text me, send me a message. And if I cannot help, completely, I will find an amazing guest like Michelle, an expert that come to help you to solve and find a solution for whatever is happening. Remember that it's our mission and vision to remind you that you are not alone and that literally if we cannot provide you a physical village, at least we are going to provide you this online village. So today, I'm super excited to have Michelle here with us because Michelle is going to be talking a lot about money stories and how money can show up for us as in motherhood and as moms. And I think that we are aligning to as more we as moms had financial freedom and abundance and money as more we can do not only for our own family but also for the world. So guides entrepreneurs through their financial mazes and she enables them to embrace their numbers with confidence instead of being scared of the numbers. Her experience also includes more than 20 years of working in business strategy grow and 20 years of working with taxes, financial strategy, and analysis in high pressure, lasting, moving environments. On a mission to help women live their rich life, Michelle specialized in refining both the practical, spiritual, and energetic aspects of money, ensuring business thrive with clarity and purpose. Michelle, welcome. Welcome to Momfit. I'm so happy to have you here. Let's gonna start with the question that I ask all my guests. I ask my guests to give me a phrase, and I want to ask you why you give me your phrase. And Michelle's phrase for everybody was, "When you see money differently, you see different money." So,
Mhm.
Michelle, welcome.
Awesome. Thank you, Joe. I'm so excited for this conversation. It's going to be so much fun. And thank you so much for an amazing introduction. Um, and I think it's important to remember, like, regardless of where you're at in your life around money, like your level of wealth or, whether you've got $1 in the bank or $1 million in the bank, we all have a relationship with money. And, it's important to understand that so that we can improve it, transform it, and basically have more money. So that's why I say, like, it really depends on how you're looking at money. It really depends on um, how you're seeing money. When you're willing to see money differently, you will see different money. Like, you'll see a different reality. It's just how our brain works. So I can't wait to get into this conversation.
Amazing. Okay, so let's gonna just start a little bit into your story of how you get here. How do you did that story of your heroine journey into discovering that this is what made that this is what you love to do?
Well, I think, if I go way, way back, I was really good with numbers in school, and so I was kind of pushed along the route, like the finance route, in post-secondary education, um, and worked in all sorts of different corporate finance roles, strategic growth, large corporations, and that was great. It gave me really great experience and a skill set. But then when I had kids, it became difficult, right? Like it when I first started having my children, I was living in London, England. I worked in the city in a very high pressured role, and it was just not the right environment to have a little person. Like it didn't work. And so I suffered a lot with mental health issues postpartum, and I it was really hard for me to um, figure out the whole like transitioning between like career person and like career person with a child, right? I had 3 children very close together. They're all like 18 months apart, and um, I just realized that I just could not live the same life anymore. But all the while, I'm I was worried about money, right? It was like, well, we still have bills to pay. Like, how are we going to do this? My husband had a great job at the time, but living in England, it was really expensive. When my oldest got to be 4, I decided, or we decided together, we would move back to Canada and have the kids educated in Canada, which presented a whole nother complexity around money and being a mom. And when we moved back, my husband didn't have a work permit at first, so I had to go get a job, and there was a lot going on, right? I ended up starting my own business, which was a little boutique. It lasted 2 years. I always say, like, that was my MBA in entrepreneurship, because I had always worked for large corporations before with other people's money. And now it was a small business with my own money. It was very different. And I learned so much. And through the course of having that business, I got to know a lot of other small business owners. And I realized that they didn't understand their numbers, that they were in business because they loved what they did and they loved the impact that it could make, but they didn't really understand the numbers behind the business. So that was the beginning of my current business. I started helping people get their finances, like financial records in order, clean up their finances, understand their numbers. And my company, blossomed from there. Um, I think it's really important that women understand their relationship with money. Through this journey for myself, through entrepreneurship, I've gotten very clear on my relationship with money, and um, how I have certain gifts around money and I have certain weaknesses or challenges. And so I can lean into those gifts and really like maximize on them, and then I can create strategies for the things that I'm challenged with. And and through that, I can create a way different wealth. And the reason that, in particular for me, women having more money, or really it's any part of marginalized parts of society, but in particular women, is that it's been proven that when women have money, our world changes, communities change, right? And women spend money differently, and they spend money supporting other women. They spend money supporting the smaller things in the community. They spend money with their children, in like community activities and stuff like that. I'm not saying men don't, but women spend money differently, which leads to a different uh, like impact and legacy. So we just need more, because I think we can all agree that we could change our world for the better, even if it's one small thing at a time, right?
Absolutely, and I love that we're aligned on that. That if I could do if I could be like godmother and have one wish, would be that every mom in the world will be a millionaire. And the reality is that is goes back connected to our genetics and male genetics. Like males are providers, they are collectors. So in their DNA, they take the money and the resources to themselves and their family. That is why you see all these billionaires and billions of little males, because in their DNA, in their brain, that is how it works. But we as females, from our DNA, from when we were living in tribes, we are the collectors, we are in community, we were gatherers. So that is what we do. You were saying we do with our money. As soon as we have money, we start thinking, okay, do I have enough for me and my family? And if the answer is yes, then immediately we start saying who I can help, where I can invest, who else can I can collaborate, and it's a very nice thing. Now let's gonna talk a little bit about that relationship between motherhood and money, and how um that relationship can change when we decide to have children. Because I think that especially on um, our side of the world is very clear that the balance is still not balanced between males and females. So we both are starting a business or we both are starting a career, but then when we get into being a mom, then a lot of moms need to start making those hard decisions between, do I need to keep my career or my business and choose to not have children, or oh, I have children now, do I stay back from my career? Do I need to compromise? Do I need to have a different relation? Do I need to rely money in my partner? So let's gonna talk a little bit about those things that start showing up when we go into this stage of our life as moms.
Yeah, for sure. Everything changes, right? When we move into that motherhood time, our physical body is changing, our brains are changing, our mental health, our emotions are changing, and we can move into stress if we don't feel like we have enough, right? And I have a team member who just went on maternity leave, and it's her first baby, right? And she was worried about, am I going to have enough money on maternity leave? And in fact, she had a conversation with her manager saying, I'll come back after a week. And we're all like, no, you're not. Like, you think you have nothing, you have no idea what it's going to be like, right? But it's the financial pressure that causes women to think that, and I was that, right? I had a very um, like powerful career, a really important position, and in the UK with my first baby, I had 6 weeks maternity leave, and that was it. That was all that was paid for, and I was like, "Okay, I gotta go back. We need this money." And it was the worst thing I could have done. My mental health suffered enormously with that decision, right? So, um, one of the key things to look at, uh, for the viewers is, do you have a belief that there is enough, or are you living in the not enough, right? Because it's an important to kind of get clear on that, and it's not right or wrong, it's not good or bad. Like, um, we live in a world where we're bombarded with so much information, and a lot of it is not enoughness. We're physically not enough, we're wealthily not enough, we're healthy not enough. Like, there's all this not enoughness out there, right? And it's important to see for yourself, are you kind of like on the not enough train, or are you living in a place where I have enough, I always have had enough, I always will have enough, it's going to be okay. I might need to make different choices, and I might need to do things differently, but there's always going to be enough. because that's where it starts, right? If we're in the place of not enough, we're going to be scrambling, and we're going to have that kind of anxious energy, that nervousness, not trusting. And from that place, we're just going to create more of that, right? And our brain is all set up with our reticular activating system to see exactly what we tell it to see. So if we're concentrating on not enoughness, the reticular activating system is going to show us not enough, right? That's what happens with our brain. It has to filter out everything except for what we say is important. And that's decided by what we are constantly thinking. So that's the first place to start is it not enough, or is it there's always enough?
And I think that that is so powerful and important to remember and to call out, because the next topic that we start getting sideways, we all have stories around money, and I would love to hear your thoughts into how those stories around money can show up even stronger or even louder on that transition of motherhood. Because the reality is, I feel that for when you were talking on England, in the United States where I am, the 6 weeks are not even pay. So they are this. There is no maternity leave. Like, you can have 6 weeks of non-pay, and that is why you have moms at 1 week, 2 weeks, literally going back because they need to eat. But
Mhm.
all of that goes back into that those stories that come when we were growing up. So it's gonna talk about that part of those stories, and then how we are living those stories every day, and how we can start being aware of them and start capturing them so they don't run that over there in the subconscious, but we bring light to those stories and then feel empowered to say, okay, do I this is a story that is serving me? Is this a story that is adding value or not?
Totally. I think it's important to remember that between the ages of 0 and 7, and this is important for moms to hear as well because they have a direct impact on their children. Between those ages of 0 and 7, our brains and our bodies are like a sponge. We are absorbing everything subconsciously and in our body. So any kind of trauma is just absorbed. But also conversations, energy, um, like arguments, experiences, it's all absorbed by the brain and it's recorded in our subconscious. And this is just science, right? Like this, it sounds might sound kind of crazy to some people, but it's just science. They figured this out, those smart scientist people. And we when our body and our brain record that information, it's recorded as fact. Like this is just how it is, right? So if you grew up in a family where your parents argued about money or there was a lot of stress about money, that's just recorded as fact in your subconscious, right? So it's like, well, money equals arguments, money equals stress, right? If you grew up in a family where the dad made all the money and the mom stayed home, I don't think those necessarily exist anymore because of our economy. But if that's how you grew up, then that's going to be the fact that you expect. That's what your brain goes, well, this is how money is. Or women don't have, they're given an allowance for food, or they have to ask for money. Or I love the kind of like the stereotype of the woman who spends a lot of money, like it's a shopaholic and that kind of thing, right? Like if that was your parent, if that was your mom or your dad, could be on either side, you will form an opinion in your brain and live that from that place. And the reason that it's important to understand what these experiences are for you or were is that you're repeating them, whether or not you realize it or not. So I'll share with you an example for me, which once I saw this, I was like, "Oh my God!" It's like once you see something, you can't unsee it, right? So I grew up in a working class commercial fishing family, And with commercial fishing, when there's fish running, there's lots of money. When there's not, there's no money. So it was this very big feast or famine cycle, right? And that's just how life was in my family. So when there was lots of money, we did lots of things. Like we went on holiday and we did all these, we had all this stuff. When there wasn't lots of money, we didn't do any of that, right? And I can even remember a year where my dad traded in his car, which was like this really nice big car, for this tiny little used gross car that I thought was like, what? I'm not getting in that car. Like, where's our car? Right. But it was because we didn't have any money. And so in my life, I artificially created the feast or famine cycle through debt. Right. So I would get into a lot of credit card debt and then I would work and pay it off. I'd get into debt again and then I'd work and pay it off. So I created this artificial feast or famine cycle because my reality wasn't that. I had a steady job with a regular paycheck. Right. And but that what's important there is to understand that that was my comfort level. That was my subconscious's comfort level, even though it wasn't fun to experience, right? Energetically, it was that comfort zone, right? So my brain knew that. It was familiar with that. So I subconsciously artificially created that. And that's what will happen. However, once we realize um, these stories, once we realize what we're aware of, the things that we grew up in, the situations, the experiences, the energy of it, um, self-awareness is like gold. Once you realize it, you can then go, okay, well, do I want that or not? Right.
And I love that because it's matter of like what you were saying. Some of those things are just so by default, and
Mhm.
it's part of that inner work of discovering then and say, oh, this is a pattern, and no matter how much I work, I get back to that cycle. Then there is a belief behind thinking about you that you were saying that is so true also with like with every other aspect of motherhood. Money is not the difference. When we are doing a double duty, we are working on raising our kids different, and at the same time we are doing our own work and almost like reparenting ourselves. That is what we need to do sometimes with money, is reparenting ourselves. So I was thinking, because right now my kid is almost 3, and I was thinking automatic answers that we give related to money, like
Oh, yeah,
the
totally.
corn in the mouth. Oh, that's dirty. Don't. So yeah, what you want to say is that the coin was in the floor, but then in their mind, oh, money equal is dirty.
Dirty.
So things like that for us to start thinking into what are the things, what are some of those says that we say all the time, because one of the things that I love about the motherhood marathon is as we start paying attention to our parenting and what we say, that is a huge open door for us to say, huh, where did I learn that? Okay,
Totally.
when I was growing up, my mom was saying that, and how was the relationship? So we can start breaking those generational, like I call generational courses of doing in a almost zombie way the same and repeat the same numbers and paradigms. Because another one that for example for me and a lot of people in Colombia that was in the 80s was very strong was the part of the people with money are bad people, because
Yeah.
in the 80s the only people that was visibly wealthy were the narcos and were the people that kill people and all that. So there was an assumption. We didn't have that balance of, yeah, and there is also very wealthy people that are very good. So it's about also start thinking about that. And um I would love for you to share a little bit more into, after we start being aware of that story like yours. Oh, I get in a lot of debt. I work my ass, pay it off, and then goes back. Because that is part of, like you were saying, not feeling safe. Like not,
Mhm.
I not feel safe with more money, or I cannot be trusted with more money, or I don't deserve more money. When we start being aware of those patterns, how we can start in a daily basis breaking those stories and actually creating a new story for us and our children.
Totally. So, like I said, it starts with awareness. What do you believe now, right? And so you can just write that out in a journal, right? Like this doesn't have to be fancy. You don't need, you know, a a huge like program around money to like do this work. You can just do it on your own with a pen and a piece of paper, or if you don't like writing, like say it into a voice recorder or something like that. Get clear on what you believe, right? And then how do you want to feel about money, right? How do you want to impact your family, your community, the world with money, right? Because once we know, okay, we know where we're at, we know where we want to be. Now we can take the steps to get there, right? If we don't know where we're at, where we want to be is just this made up place. We don't know how, like, it's like on a map that we don't know where we're going, right? If we don't know how we want to feel, but we know where we're at, we're just going to stay there, right? So, how do you want to feel about money, right? How do you want to receive money? Do you want to receive it from like working hard, 14-hour days kind of thing, or do you want to receive it from having fun, right? Like we were talking to Eduardo a little bit, and he's like, "This is my fun job." Right? Like that's great to know that, right? And by understanding how you want to feel, and the impact that you want to create, right? It's all about the feelings that generates in your body, because that generates the energy, right? And when we know how we want to feel, we can make a decision to feel that way regardless of how much money is in the bank, right? Because if we feel that way, we are embodying that energy, that feeling, and we can then, our brain gets on board with that. And what happens is, this is where people talk about manifestation and miracles and all that stuff. Little crumbs start to happen, and you start to change things very gradually, right? Like a little opportunity will present itself. Now, that opportunity might have presented itself, but if you didn't do all this work around what you want to do, and the relationship you want with money, you might not have seen it as an opportunity. You might have seen it as a challenge, or, well, that's not for me, or that's not even possible for me, right? It all starts with, how do you want to feel? Like, a lot of people will around money, they'll focus on what they need to do, right? What do I need to do to be wealthy? I promise you, it's not that. It's, how do you want to feel with money? And when you can embody that feeling, regardless of what your bank account is, then everything will start to change.
And I think that that is um, very important, and is where it starts for us as moms. And sometimes as moms, it's also easier to get it aligned with our children, because it's how I want to feel and how I want my children to feel about this. What are some of
Yeah.
the things that I would love to get to that next generation? And then one of the things that I would love to hear your opinion, because society, and we are going to get a little bit into the patriarchal BS here, but I think that society is being putting so much attention and energy into the money, the
Hmm.
paper, because it's a way of controlling. It's a way to keep us control. But at the end, the money is just a symbol and doesn't have good or bad adjectives. That I think that is one of those fears that a lot of moms had, that is, if I have more money, then I'm gonna become bad, or I'm gonna become greedy. And one of the things that I love to say here is money is just an amplifier of who you are. And that is why I think that is so important that
Yeah.
you are very clear with your values into how do you want to feel. Because if everything that you are anchoring is about feeling good and doing good for the world like we were doing before, and helping others, money is not that bad witch that is going to come and turn your heart around. Money is just an amplifier, that whatever is already there is going to be magnified. Yes, there are a lot of rich people that are bad. I will pay you money that if you go back to before they were rich, they were still assholes. They were still bad.
Totally, totally. And, it's funny, I was at an event in Florida a couple weeks ago, and I was having lunch, and one of the gals said, something about, like, "Well, I've developed a level of wealth now, but I don't want my kids to be spoiled brats." And I was like, "Okay, let's look at that," right? Like, let's look at that language, and let's look at those assumptions there, right? It's super important because, there's an underlying tone in that statement of money's bad, right? Spoiled brat kids with lots of money, right? So, these things can be very, like, sneaky, like these beliefs and stuff, and we just have to be willing to examine our beliefs and stuff, right? And then the other piece that like, just you were talking about, like, with moms and stuff, um it is so important. Like, moms give so much, like, more than 100% usually to their kids, right? And they will often go without for the sake of their children, often, right? It's just what we do. We're the nurturers. Um, so having enough money, right? Having the kind of money that makes them feel secure in life is really important. But moms can have different reasons for having money, and it's totally okay. For example, um, my best friend, her son has unique needs, and her desire around money is that she has enough money to always pay for all his therapies, to not have to rely on, the insurance will pay for this, or whatever will pay for that. It's, I want to have enough money so that I can pay for whatever therapy he needs out of my pocket, right? That's a very powerful reason for money to come in, right? Um, and so it doesn't just have to be like, you want to feel like, like, there's this whole kind of, we think about the, like, the Instagram version of, like, I want to feel abundant, I want to feel expansive, I want to feel like all of that. And that's awesome. And in particular, I think for moms, there's a feeling that directly relates to their kids. Like, for me, I want to be able to pay for my children's education, like their university education. So I've got two kids in university right now. One is just finishing and is probably going to go on to law school. I would love to be able to feel like I can fully pay for that, and she's not going to leave law school with $100,000 in debt, right? So we have different desires. Like you said, for women, a lot of times, do I have enough for me? And then they start to look outside of their family unit, right? Like, how can I then, support other people, right?
And I think that it's so valuable to start seeing it like that. Because the other taboo that I want to tackle with you is that we are being almost brainwashed that, oh, but I'm not good with money, but I
Yeah.
don't know how to, I don't know how to manage money. And like we were talking before, the data shows otherwise. The data shows that as more money women and moms had, as better their economies are, as better their surroundings are. What happened is you may not learn how to manage money growing up. So again, the story is you still have some fear. You still are very scared. And one of the things that I would love to think here is when we take away that power of what money is and we start seeing it like almost like it's just a piece of paper that is showing value, then there is nothing to tell us that we cannot learn. Like it's more about, oh, it's not that you are bad with money, it's that maybe you are not very confident with money, you are not very confident in the choices that you make, and then from there start building. Because the other one that, and I would love to hear your opinion, because we were talking before about this chopaholic, that buy, that is a lot more common on females and moms
Mhm.
than on males, and that on females that don't have children. And my hypothesis is because they are trying to feel an emotional need of feeling empty and feeling their needs not met emotionally, mentally in their house with the load of the kids and the partner or without a partner. So then they focus into that dopamine release of buying and getting things as a way to feel that. But that doesn't mean that you are bad with money. If anything, that means that you are burnt out, exhausted, and need to figure out some self-care techniques to make you feel more full with yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I know this from experience because my dad used to say all the time, "Michelle, money burns a hole in your pocket. You can't keep money for the life of you," right? So when I was little, he would give me my allowance. I would immediately get on my bike, ride my bike to the corner store, buy all the candy, all the chocolate and the pop and the chips, drive, ride my bike back home and just like feel like this is the best thing ever, right? Now, that's my dad was watching this and just seeing that like I would spend a lot of money, right? I would buy anything. I remember getting birthday money and I got on the bus and went to the mall and bought a whole bunch of like Barbies and stuff. I just had to spend it. Now that I have done all this work on myself, the thing was happening in my life is my mom had passed away when I was 9, and she was sick for several years before that. So there was a lot of emotional stuff going on for me as a little girl, and I was feeling that need, I just like you said, that dopamine, that I was filling that loss with whatever I could buy, right? Because it felt good to go and buy stuff. And so, absolutely, you're, like, spot on when women usually men have different patterns around money, but for women, a lot of time it's shopping and spending, and, it can also look like buying courses or joining programs or, like, the next great person who's got something to sell you, right? Like you jump on board with that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but are you using the things that you're buying, right? Are you just consuming for the sake of consuming? Or is this part of a growth for you, right? So going to the store and buying candy is not the wisest thing to do, right? But for that little girl, it was what she needed to feel okay in the moment. Now, I wish my dad had seen that. He's kind of from an older generation and like got me into therapy or something, right? Like I had to do that myself years later, right? But these things, they're the way we interact with money, it's a key indicator of usually something else that's going on underneath that we haven't yet dealt with. And that's the thing to look at.
And I think that is so powerful. I was actually talking with somebody about that because there is a phrase that I love from a mentor and says, "How you do anything is how you do everything." And
Yeah.
the thing that I love about money is money takes the most raw, uncover realities of each person. Like, for example, when I'm doing my quiz around health and relationships, the questions are always geared into money, and people are like, why money? And I'm like, because with relationships and health, you have also that bias into what is acceptable with society. But
Yeah.
there is something really, really specific about money, that with money, that cloud is not there. With money, it's a lot easier for us to just show up and say, I will not expend, or I will spend. And like you were saying, that says a lot. So I think that is a beautiful invitation for everybody that is listening to start thinking, what is your relationship with money, and how do you react? Do you overspend? Do you feel that you need to have your bank account on zero, or you don't overspend and you need to have your bank account at 50,000 or a negative? Because I love how you connected and said how you behave with money and how you relate with money is just a symptom, like the fever. That is not the
Mhm.
problem. The problem is not like, oh, you are bad with money, so then you should not have money. The problem is that is a symptom that is showing up, that like fever is showing up, that there is an infection in your body that you are fighting. That relationship with money is showing up, like in your case, that there is something else that you need to heal or put attention. And for so many of these moms, like, I hear you, the middle of the night, you are sleep deprived, you know that tomorrow is going to be a long day, and then you go into the easy thing, Amazon, in your phone or online shopping, and that hit give you some kind of relief and dopamine. That doesn't mean that you're bad with money. That doesn't mean that you
No.
cannot be trust with money. That means that you are running on empty. And I will say, take it as a big red light to say, wow, this is telling me a clear message. And is, I need to adjust things. I need to change things.
Yeah, and you touch on a little thing there that I think is really important because a lot of times people or women will say, well, like you said, like I'm just bad with money or I can't save, that's not me or whatever it is, right? Um it's also important to remember that like as women, we haven't been set up in society to be wealthy, right? There is only 50 years ago that we couldn't have our own credit card, right? Like that's not that long ago. I'm 55, so that's I like this is really not that long ago. And there is this um like there's a bit of a patriarchal society around money, like we can call it what it is. It's not great. It's been proven, right, that we've got the gender wage gap, we've got a lending gap for women, right? A huge lending gap. We've got we've got a lot of work to do around this, and now that we've got AI, um, I was just at a conference and they were talking about gender bias in AI and how if a like say they used an example of recruitment. If your resume has a woman's name or even has a reference to like I coached a women's baseball team, the AI drops the resume down in the list, right? Because everything in our society up until recently has been geared towards men, right? And even technology, it's made by men, it's set up for men, like it's just how it is. So we have work to do there, right? And it's the most important thing I want women to understand is it's not your fault, right? We think back to um, being in school, and there's this unconscious bias that girls aren't good with numbers or they're not good with money or girls aren't good with math or I watched this thing the other day, this video about like run like a girl, what does that mean? And I was shocked to even like see like the older you were, the worse that saying kind of displayed itself as, right? The young little girls were like, I'm running. And then the older women were like, they do this kind of thing, right? And it's like, no, like And the same thing applies to money and numbers and math and all of that, right? And this, this stereotype of like the nerdy girl who is awesome at, I don't know, trigonometry or something, right? Like the math Olympics or something like that. Like it's a bad thing, right? So it's important, I just think, to say, like, and none of this is your fault. We haven't been set up for success, right? So we can do our work now so that our future generations have a very different experience. That is my whole thing with my kids. It's like you are going to have a completely different relationship with money than I did,
And, and I think
especially
that
for my girls.
I think you are spot on in everything that you said. And I want to also make a reminder to all of you that are there, and that is tap into that make us woman how we are, and that is that we love to help. So if you are thinking that you don't know about numbers, you don't know how to do budgeting, I will bet you that within your circle, or if not, reach out to Michelle, reach out to me. There is going to be women that know how to do it, and I promise you, I will bet you money. Any woman will be more than happy to sit down with a cup of coffee and tell you, "Hey, sister, it's not that complicated. There is this app,
Right?
and there is this app, and you can connect this, and we'll give you alerts." And don't let your own fear to stop you from taking empowerment and ownership of your financial life and your kids financial life, because what Michelle was saying is true. Is males are designed in a different way. Males are designed in a way that is not bad, it's different, and that is why we need to have that balance, to have that proper thing. Michelle, I love this conversation. Now that we are closing the show, will you please give us one message that you want everybody here in the audience around the world to stay with? And also, if they want to keep learning from you and connect with you, how they can reach out to you.
For sure. Absolutely. I would say if I had to summarize everything into one succinct message, it's that you are your biggest asset. So know yourself better. Um, you can do anything because you are your biggest asset, but we have to know ourselves. And if anybody wants to follow me, I'm on all the socials as Michelle B. Cooper, and they can go to my website, michellebcooper.com.
Okay, so now you know, go please follow Michelle, send her a DM telling her what you love about the show, Michelle B. Cooper, in all the socials and her website. Make sure that you are following me too in social media, Instagram, Facebook, Joe Unicorn Coach. And please remember that you are your biggest asset, like Michelle sent us today on this beautiful message. And this show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and leave it. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Joe.